Friday the 1st of April, this is the Climate Alarm Clock. This week's headlines: fires all over the country in the past 2 weeks, and climate action announced as a new Leaving Cert subject. Also coming up on this week's show, Ciara Carney is back with her Book of Leaves collaboration, and we chat to Niall Hatch from Birdwatch Ireland. Hello and welcome to the Climate Alarm Clock, Ireland's weekly climate news podcast. Now, as you know, we are really passionate about delivering climate news, but this week we're going to make an exception. We feel something really, really important has happened that we can't ignore, that we're going to dedicate a whole special episode to. So we're abandoning climate change for this week, and instead we're going to talk about an event that happened at an awards ceremony where a man hit another man, and it's clearly the most important thing that ever happened. So we're abandoning climate change this week. I'm just going to look at the slap. April Fools. So we're not. We're back with our usual mix of features and news. So for those of you that don't know, this is a volunteer-led project just of people who are passionate about delivering accessible, regular climate news. We feel it's a really important thing to do because climate change is going to affect every facet of our lives and people need to know about it. So if you think that that's important as well, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen and tell your friends. So, as I said, we're back with our usual mix of news and features this week, and as always, we will start with our news roundup, and I'm delighted to be joined by Ciara Daly and Anna Pringle. Ciara, how are you keeping?
I am very well, Darragh. Thank you very much. And what about your fine self?
I'm good, thanks very much. Anna, how are you doing?
I'm good, Darragh. You had me worried there for a minute.
Yeah. So if you're not listening to this on the 1st of April, apologies, but that's when it went out. So we're going to start with a roundup of all the stories that we're not going to look in at detail. We're just going to round up the week's climate stories. So Anna, over to you.
Okay, Darragh, and as always, there's a lot going on. Last week, we talked about high temperatures in the polar regions, and this week, satellite data confirmed that the Conger Ice Shelf in Antarctica has collapsed. The good news is it probably won't have a huge effect, but the bad news is it's likely a sign of things to come. Oil and gas were a huge story again this week. We heard today that Germany is considering rationing gas because Russia is their main supply. In the Oireachtas, there was a major focus on Ireland's energy challenges and some concerns that we could see fracked gas being used here and also backtracking on LNG commitments. So we have to keep an eye on that. The government also announced a flurry of measures this week. They are planning to spend €1 billion on a new road from Cork to Limerick, supposedly alongside a range of public and active transport measures. We'll reserve our judgment until we see those because it's still a new road and we know that leads to more traffic. The government also approved the Circular Economy Bill, which aims to keep goods and products in use for as long as possible and make sure that materials are reused and reduce the amount of waste going to landfill. That would be a huge transformation in how we operate. But all we saw yesterday was discussion about coffee cup levies, so there's a way to go on that one. And in good news, solar and wind energy provided over 10% of the world's electricity in 2021 for the first time, with 38% of electricity coming from clean sources, including nuclear and hydro. But electricity demand grew substantially, so we've also seen an increase in coal usage, which we obviously need to reduce. Here in Ireland last year, 32.9% of our electricity was generated from renewables. And that's up from just 10% in 2010. So that's a big improvement. And we can still do better. Then last but not least, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock for not mentioning climate change at the Oscars.
Thanks, Anna. So now we're going to look at a story that you didn't mention there, which was the fires that were burning around all of Ireland, basically, for the last couple of weeks. So we have seen hill fires, we've seen fires in bogs, all around the country in places including Galway, Mayo, Donegal, Monaghan, Down, Kilkenny, Wicklow, Carlow, Cork, Limerick in the Ballyhura Special Area of Conservation, and Kerry. There were lots of fires, including one in the Gortadua Special Area of Conservation. So
God, that is quite an extensive list. What is causing these fires? Who is causing these fires? I didn't hear anything about this in the news.
It hasn't been getting as much coverage as it should, for sure.
Yes, and it's something that happens every year, and it's kind of almost become accepted now. It's a good question, Ciara, in terms of who is causing the fires. The one in Cork, in the Glen, it sounds from some reports like it was just some children doing it for the crack. Then a lot of the fires would be set by farmers to clear land for grazing, which is actually totally legal to do if you do it before the end of February. But these fires obviously are happening at the end of March, and from the 1st of March it is illegal.
So, one thing I've observed, Darragh, is that the hedgerows are being destroyed right up until the 1st of March. And then a lot of the burning is actually burning the pieces that have been cut off hedgerows. So, I mean, it seems to be, and that part is legal though, right? I mean, it's legal to burn, or is it? Because I've seen some confusion around that.
Yeah, it is. If you have cut hedgerows before the 1st of March, you can let those dry out and then burn them. And obviously there's been debates online on whether this is, even if it's legal, is this a good thing to do or not? But actually, for me, that's nearly not relevant to the debate, because can we just cut out the illegal stuff first and then worry about the legal bits?
When you're saying, is it something we should be doing or not? That actually, what's the difference between me setting something on fire on the 28th of February versus on the 1st of March? Why does it suddenly just become illegal one day?
It's that law is in place with a view to protecting wildlife. So birds start nesting from around the start of March. Their young start hatching. So before then, if there's a fire, most birds will be able to just fly away and escape it. After that, birds have started nesting, they've laid eggs, their young might have hatched, and so they're just animals that can't escape the blaze.
That is horrific.
And it's not just birds. It's not just birds. It's all any ground animals. They're all if you see hares, they're starting to have leverets. I don't know what they're called. Leverets, so there's just a lot of impact on any animals that are in the area.
Oh my God, that is absolutely awful. I live in the countryside, and I'm finding out at 31 years of age that is what is happening. That is awful. Who's in charge of stopping this? Do I need to get out there? No, in all seriousness, who is in charge of looking after that?
So it's sort of nobody, because there's two people, or there's two groups involved. The National Parks and Wildlife Service have some responsibility for it, and the Gardaí do. So in June of last year, it was announced that a wildlife crime unit was going to be set up as a collaboration between these two groups.
Okay.
And that hasn't happened as of yet. So there's no one really in charge of it. There's very rarely anyone punished for doing it. I
was just going to say the what you hear is, well, we'd have to catch somebody with a box of matches setting the fire, and you're never going to catch people literally red-handed in this, which is a shame.
I mean, I've obviously known people do a little bit that they burn trees or bushes or whatever, but I thought, I just never put the two and two together of what actually was living in that bush or underneath it. And that is actually really disturbing.
And also just to mention, we're in a biodiversity crisis. We've lost loads of our wildlife. Some of our species are just about hanging on, just about hanging in there. And this is just an extra stress, an extra pressure being put on bird and animal populations that, if we keep going, some birds, some animals aren't going to be able to withstand it.
Wow. So it is, is it a serious problem? Is it just more really a local problem?
That's a really good question in terms of, in the short term, they are local problems and that's how they're being treated. But if you look at the big picture, every March, every year, huge parts of our countryside are on fire. So if it was just a one-off fire in the odd place every so often, it's grand. But this is a pattern.
Yeah.
And what that's doing in the long term is, well, first of all, it's burning carbon stores. So places where carbon are being stored is then turning into CO2 going into our atmosphere, creating emissions. Secondly, it's causing our biodiversity to disappear. As I said, it's another pressure on our biodiversity. And then thirdly, in the really long term, by degrading this land, when we see climate impacts, so if we see heavy rains, if we've had loads of fires, the land will be degraded, won't be able to store the water from heavy rainfall, so we're more likely to see flooding. Or similarly,
God.
if we've drought, the land that has been burnt won't be able to withstand the dry weather as well. Whereas if it was a regenerated ecosystem like a peatland or a woodland, they would be far more resistant to drought. Yeah.
And we're seeing more impact of the fires because we've recently had drier spring weather, partly because of the climate change. And so we've got effectively a drought in spring, which means those fires are likely to take hold and cover much more ground. And it's only a matter of time, I think, really, before you have one that becomes catastrophic. Like we had a few years ago in Donegal, there was houses burned down because the fires spread so quickly. So I think we're playing with fire here.
Houses burned down because of these wildfires.
Yeah, in West Donegal, probably 5 to 7 years ago, I'd say there was a very big one, and lives were threatened by it. Yeah.
Okay, that is insane. Yeah. So it definitely is a national sort of problem, not really local by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So
and long-term change needs to happen. I mean, there needs to be some sort of long-term incentives or education for people living in the land not to do this.
Yeah, I think we need to see that in the long term. We need to see a cultural shift. We need to see an economic shift where it's viable for farmers to not have to burn land for grazing. And we also need to see the enforcement. If we could see a change from this year to next year, it's that it's policed, it's that it's actively policed, and that they actually catch people and people are prosecuted. So we need to see those two things.
Yeah, definitely.
Going hand in hand. All right. We'll move on to our next story then, I think, which is a much better news story, I think, which is that during the week, Minister for Education Norma Foley announced that climate action and sustainable development would be a Leaving Cert subject from 2024.
So, Darragh, have you written a letter of appreciation to your favourite minister yet?
I haven't. So yeah, I mean, this is a good news story. It's good to hear that climate action and sustainable development is going to be an option there for Leaving Cert students. I suppose there are still a lot of questions as to what it's actually going to look like, as to who's going to be teaching it, as to what the course content is going to be, and as to how many students will actually be able to access it.
I have a question.
Yeah, go on.
Are you going to tell Norma Foley it's a job well done?
Not yet. Too soon.
Yeah, let's wait and see what happens. So I am a teacher, so I'm involved in education, and I've looked into the Department of Education's history of climate action, and it's not good. So if you look back at our climate action plans, they've said in the past that they will ensure that all curriculums are reviewed against climate action, and that they'll build climate literacy through the primary, secondary and adult education curriculums. And we haven't seen that. So I'm waiting to see if they will actually do what they've said they're going to do. But also, I suppose there's and I've chatted to a couple of people involved in environmental education, and they would have similar reservations that it's a step in the right direction, but actually we need to see if education is going to rise to the challenge that climate change presents. We need to see whole-scale changes to our education system. We need to see climate change integrated into all subject areas. We need to see a major upskilling of teachers in this area. So it's a step in the right direction, as long as it's not the only step, and it's as long as it's the start of a number of measures. Then
do we know what? So it's climate action and sustainable development. Do we know any more about what that subject looks like?
No.
Okay.
No, so it's literally an announcement at this point. And you could argue that actually you'd be better off weaving it throughout history, geography, economics, etc. So it'll be an interesting one to see how it plays out. I mean, actually, my 13-year-old who's in first year is doing something called student enrichment, and they have a unit on. Yeah, they have a unit on climate change and climate justice, which I was surprised to see. And it's apparently, the blurb says, it's to give them a greater understanding of the causes and impacts of climate change and empower them to take action and raise awareness. seemed kind of positive to me. I'm not sure where it came from, if it's just an individual teacher who has an interest or if it's part of the overall curriculum. And my 13-year-old wasn't very enlightening on any of that. Try asking a 13-year-old boy for any information, and you know what I mean. But yeah, it sounded quite positive.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So Darragh, you then picked the Not Climate story this week.
I did, yeah. And I thought a nice one to look at would be the census, which is happening on the 3rd of April for a couple of reasons. First of all, obviously this data will be there forever and it will be there for historians to look back on. And I think one thing is that when historians are looking back at this data, you know, there will be addresses on the census that will have been abandoned due to sea level rise in the future. So a few weeks ago, the chairman of the OPW, Maurice Buckley, came out and said that it won't be possible to protect every community, that some places may have to be abandoned. And a survey that came out last week, the 21-22 climate survey published by the European Investment Bank, found that 1 in 5 people in Ireland expect to have to move to another region in the future because of climate change. So that will be an interesting thing to look back on with this census data.
I was actually very surprised that there wasn't more reaction to what Maurice Buckley, the OPW head, said, that, you know, communities might have to be abandoned. I mean, if a Green TD says we probably should turn our heat down, there's war over it, but everybody, like, that one just sort of fell under the radar completely. And it's a fundamental thing if you think about it.
I suppose the one other thing then about this census is there's a time capsule element where people can write
that is so
something on a page that's going to be sealed for 100 years and reopened in 100 years. And the Irish Times ran an article where they got different Irish people of note to write to people 100 years in the future. And it was interesting because the vast majority of them didn't mention climate change. So a huge shout out to Sarah Moss and Mancon McGann, who wrote some really thought-provoking stuff around climate change. A lot of people including Luke O'Neill, wasn't on their radar at all.
You know what's funny? You think it's like so crazy that people haven't said anything about climate change. I think that's so normal. If I was writing a lovely letter to the future, I would be like, life is great, live, laugh, love. What if it all works out? Why? Like, what's the big deal if they're not saying this?
Well, because you can't think 100 years into the future without thinking about the impact. Well, I can't and Darragh can't, about the impact that we are already seeing and how that could get much worse, or how it could be dealt with and hopefully fixed. I really liked actually what Frank O'Connor, who's an activist and sustainable designer, I liked what he said. He said that it was almost too late when we realised we got carried away. We thought individualism and endless consumption would make us happy and technology was the saviour.
Yeah.
He's saying we were wrong, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the responses that annoyed me a bit actually was that of Fianna Fáil TD Christopher O'Sullivan, whose was very brief. And just to say that he is, I would say, by far and away the best Fianna Fáil TD when it comes to climate action and climate change. He said, "I'm sorry for the state the planet is in. We should have cared more. Also, Google curlew. It was a stunning wading bird with a long decurved bill." And that's all he said.
Why does that annoy you so much? Is that not good? Like that he's like, he's representing what you're feeling?
I guess it is. I guess that's one way to look at it. For me, it just really annoys me that he's saying we should have cared more. It's like, well, why don't you care more now? You're a TD. Yeah. You can actually change these things. Why are you apologising for the state the planet is in to the people in the future? Apologise to the people now who you represent and then say, I'm going to try really hard. You know? Not this kind of like, oh yeah, we should have cared more. Like, that's such a defeatist thing to say. Yeah, that's... Yeah,
I mean, to be generous to him, I think he was trying to be just a bit smart about it, but it didn't read well, for sure.
And I think, you know, and absolutely, like, be happy to give him the benefit of the doubt, because as I say, he is quite good on climate stuff. So if he wants to come clarify this, be happy to chat to him on that.
I have to say my favourite one was the anonymous one that they picked up somewhere that said it's 21-22 and have Mayo won in All Ireland yet?
Mayo.
I thought that was good.
Yeah, maybe when Dublin's underwater, Mayo will win in All-Ireland. Okay, great stuff. Thank you very much for that, everyone. We will chat to you both next week.
Thanks, Darragh.
Looking forward to it.
You are listening to the Climate Alarm Clock, Ireland's weekly climate news podcast. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Climate Alarm Clock and on Twitter at The Climate Alarm. Still to come, we restart our Book of Leaves collaboration with Ciara Carney, and I chat to Niall Hatch from Birdwatch Ireland. Now it's time for the Irish Enviro event guide for the week starting the 4th of April. On Monday the 4th of April at 6 p.m, the Friends of the Earth Learning Hub continues with an online workshop about navigating climate anxiety. You can register for it via foe.ie, and with an IPCC report coming out on Monday morning, it feels like a timely session. On Tuesday the 5th of April at 1 p.m, there's an online session as part of the Ask the Farmer series run by Farming for Nature. This session is with Madeleine McKeever from Brown Envelope Seeds, and you can register for that via Zoom. On Tuesday the 5th of April at 7:30, Connecting Communities with Peatlands is starting a webinar series with the aim of supporting peatland communities in the Midlands to build their knowledge, understanding and engagement with peat bogs. It's free and you can register for this online series on eventbrite.ie. On Wednesday the 6th of April at 1 p.m. in Glore in Ennis, County Clare, there's a Circular Economy Academy clinic. This will provide business support services including advice for startup, circular business planning, development, funding, diversification and training, and there's also free one-on-one mentoring available for learning about social enterprise, design thinking and circular economy. You can register via eventbrite.ie. At 6 p.m. on Wednesday the 6th of April, the DCU Centre for Climate and Society will be hosting a webinar reflecting on the IPCC report that's being published on Monday. You can register for that via Zoom or dcu.ie/comms team. On Thursday the 7th of April at 11 a.m. in Ballinarry, County Sligo, there's a celebration of conservation success on Lough Arrow. So you can find out more about the great work that's going on there. You can register via eventbrite.ie and get the exact location. Finally, for this week, on Friday the 8th of April at 7 p.m. in Dewhamlet Community Centre in Monaghan, there's a home energy upgrade show. So if you're up around Monaghan and you're thinking of renovating, upgrading, insulating or retrofitting your home, go along to this show. There are talks from industry experts about the latest technology, planning your project, how to access green energy grants and more. You can register via eventbrite.ie and tickets start from €16. That's it for this week's Irish Enviro event guide. If you have any events that you would like to let us know about, you can email us on climatealarmclock@gmail.com or contact us via our social media channels. So we're trying out a new format this season where we chop our episodes up into different parts so you can just dip in and out, listen to different segments as you choose. So that is the end of part 1 of this episode. Coming up in part 2, Ciara chats to Patrick Kerwin from the ISSN, and in part 3 I chat to Niall Hatch from Birdwatch Ireland. So find part 2 wherever you listen to your podcasts, and sure, while you're at it, why not write us a lovely review.